Welcome back to the Electrify podcast, brought to you by the creators of Electrify Expo, North America's largest EV festival, coming to a major city near you. I don't know if this man needs an introduction, just one number and two thumbs. Number 199 and Mr. Two Thumbs, there it is. And how many times have those thumbs been broken, Mr. Travis Pastrana?
Oh, I appreciate it, Jared. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, man. How many times have your thumbs been broken, man? Because that's like your signature thing. It's on graphics. It's what you do. If it's good or bad or otherwise or indifferent, it's just always like this physical indication that I'm okay.
Yeah, even broken leg and everything else, always got
Yeah.
the thumbs up. But ironically, so I've got a fused wrist on this side,
Yeah.
so it only like nothing goes past there. So I actually last year when we first started working with the FC1X, it's got so much power, so much torque, and the power steering was a little underwhelming at the first round, and I landed sideways off a jump, and my thumb. Yep, I mean, if you had a normal wrist, it would have been fine, but dislocated. The whole thumb just got pulled pretty much right off. And then I dislocated again in Gymkhana filming just a couple months later. But since then, it's been attached.
It's thumbs up. Yeah. I mean, great segue right into it. I just told you, I said, hey, Travis, would you be interested in being on this? And I think you entered. Yeah, of course. Like, again, we've worked together for a few years and known each other over the years, but most recently Nitro Cross. And now I feel like it's a new resurgence, even in our 23 going into 24 season, because of I think your energy and fervor, given that Dana White's involved. I think you're ready to run through a wall. I don't think the car even needs an engine. It just runs on TP energy. But overall, Nitro Cross, it's got to be exciting for you, just going from, pit bikes to two strokes to, backflips to now this great, you always say it, with age comes a cage. But how about Nitro Cross? What do you say to the naysayers that are like, I don't know, I can't do it? EV, 1,000 horsepower rally car.
So the interesting part is what we kind of came to the conclusion with, and same with Dana White, why he jumped on board. He said, "Look, electric is the future. Electric is great, but everyone's pitching electric as let's save the planet. And yes, that's awesome. I think there's so many positives going forward. But as a racer, as an enthusiast, I want the most powerful, most exciting vehicle that I can possibly drive. One that scares the absolute the doo doo
Beep.
out of me. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of drivers out there that are actually in our championship. I mean, there's not many people that sign up for Nitro Cross. Like we even had Jensen Button, phenomenal driver, awesome dude. Came over and raced the first round that didn't have the gap jumps. And he got to the gap and he's like, you know what? This sport's it's just not for me. He goes, we have so much power coming from an F1 world champion. To say this car, it accelerates so hard, it goes so hard, and with these tires, the Yokohama is basically a street spec. He goes, when we hit the dirt, it's so hard to put the power to the ground, and we're always sideways, and we're expected to jump 100+ foot gaps over top of other cars. He's like, this is not precision. This is crazy. And I think that's kind of what we're doing with the electric, because it's a perfect formula. We can get the maximum amount of power out of these nitrocross cars and these FC1X vehicles, because our racing's so short. It's so much of that's why I think rallycross is going to do so well in the US. Once people start understanding what it is, because it's short duration, it's in your face, it's right now. One event leads to the next event, leads to the next event. We got all the years of experience through Nitro Circus to have skateboarding and BMX and moto, and shit, we got class 11 cars coming in there, the buggies, Volkswagens, and like all this other, the Can-Am's class and everything else. So the electric cars have to be the star. And in order for them to be the star, they have to be scary fast. We've had some of the biggest crashes I've ever seen. I mean, and Andreas Backerud, he had never rolled a car. He's world, he got second in the World Rallycross Championship. He won, the European Rallycross Championship. Never flipped a car in his life. He gets in this his first year in electric cars. He had 9 rolls in 2 separate crashes, and he's like, I am petrified. But I think, and I don't want to make this sound too dangerous. We don't get other drivers coming in. I mean, Kyle Busch jumped in the series. Chase Elliott. Uh, there's been a lot of the top
Yeah.
kind of
Austin
drivers from
Cindric.
different
Yeah.
series. Yeah,
Yep.
Austin, of course.
Yep.
Um, even Connor Daly jumped in at the first round,
That's
and
right.
it's really cool to see all the crossover and so many drivers that your drivers that love to drive, that love to have the most power of anything, that love to fly, that love to test themselves. this is their series. And I feel like it's going to work with electric because we're not trying to do the same thing, but in electric. We want more power, and electric can give
Yeah.
us that.
I mean, again, you could just go on a tangent. That's it. Thanks. That's all we got. That's all the time we got. Thank you so
Sorry.
much. Nitro Cross, Travis Pastrana. He is the unofficial mayor. But I think it is a testimonial to you and everybody understanding that it is progression. I liked what you said there. Yeah, save the planet, but also you want it to be scary, right? It's intimidating, and you have to respect it. Von Gittin Jr. was on the podcast last week before you, and he said the comment he had was audio. And I think it's an interesting juxtaposition because it does make a little, that kind of audio tech noise. Vaughn got his audio produced by T Pain, but I
Yeah,
think
that's
it's
what
a
I was gonna
cool.
say. He had like a full track made for
I
his.
know. Yeah, I like the woo whoosh, and he mixed all these things, and I love that. But I like the juxtaposition of the quietness. But what he was, and I like the gravel machine gun going underneath the carbon Kevlar, and you hear this kind of this racing pinata just spraying out. But he talked he
A
talked
racing
about it.
pinata. Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I
have
don't know.
that shirt made up for sure.
Um, he talked about it in the cabin because there's only so many people that race F1 in a year. There's only so many people that race nitrocross in a year. And like you said, you have this kind of star car circling around. How is it in that cockpit of that thing? You talked about being intimidated by this technology and what's going on. And here we are in our second year. And to your point, you talk about breaking your thumb. Liddon Hill, right out of the gate, we're like, how are these things going to manage wheel to wheel? We've never done it. And first turn out of the gate here, me and Andrew Coley calling the action, bingo bongo, talking about racing pinata. You get into it, and it took a licking and kept on ticking outside of your thumb. But overall, just being in that cockpit, the noise, the experience, all that, taking it to Liddon Hill, the birthplace of rallycross, and here's Nitrocross.
So in the vehicle, I can't tell the difference between, um, a gas powered combustion powered machine, and an electric machine. It's yes, it's
Okay.
quieter. I think the biggest difference is the start. It took me so many races. I was 4 rounds in before I could like because you're looking at all the gauges, but you can't hear anything. So I just always went foot to the floor, and I'm just
Mhm.
lighting the tires up. It's like if you turn it up to 10, which it's so wild having you know all the engineers are like, you should be down at 5, you should be down at 6, like basically take 1,000 horsepower and make it 800, but progressive, which is still more than we've ever had. And the lap times in the race are faster, but I like to have that power at my fingertips. And as soon as I feel that traction, but on the start line is the only difference because you're there. And I was in Sweden, and it was funny because it was in a Swedish accent, which is very American to be perfectly honest. But they were making a "yo mama" joke to me, and I'm on the starting line, and I'm like 2 seconds before the I say gate drops, but the lights go out and we take off, and I've never ever been able to hear anything but the vibration of like my brain rocking around in my head because of like dirt bikes or two strokes or rally cars or like just pop 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 pop. But when you take off, you can actually feel the car more. Everything makes sense. We still have 3 gears in the cars. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's
Yeah.
automatic." No, we have gears in the FC1X because we want to know jump speeds and to have like a maximum, and a maximum wheel spin. Because a lot of times you come out of the corner, if you're in, say, second gear, your wheel spin can only go 115, where
Mhm.
they'll go 180 in third, and you're just losing time waiting for it. So it kind of helps you to gauge that throttle, especially at the beginning. Um, and it helps with the jumps as well, like I was saying there. But at the end of the day, I like the electric. It's
Mhm.
you don't notice the difference. It is freaking. It's awesome, and we have so many opportunities to now go race in town in cities. We have opportunities.
Mhm.
So many motocross tracks are getting shut down, especially when the four strokes came around because it just the noise went further. So I believe racetracks are going to have less stipulations. They're going to have less restraints on when they can perform, how late they can go, how early they can start. Like this is going to open up
Yeah.
so much in the motorsports community.
That is a great, very, very valid point as far as motorsports goes and the progression of that with Formula E, Extreme E, right? Leah Block's racing that, Tanner Fowl. I mean, many of our friends, RJ Anderson, Amanda Sorensen, so many of our friends are racing Extreme E, which is a great complement to off-road electric, right?
Yeah,
So here's the
Fraz
EV
too.
component. What's yeah, Fraser McCall. That's what I'm saying. So many friends. I'm like, the list goes on. We're always guilty of that. Like, who, what, when? Um, so, I mean, we're going to bounce around here. This is what I love about this new format of the Electrify podcast is you just came from Goodwood, man, the family huckster. I just reposted a video of you just ripping with the active arrow and all that. How cool is Goodwood for anybody that's never gone? I've been a few times. How cool is it ripping up the hill, and how cool is that Huckster, dude? Wagons for life. I'm a big wagon guy.
Dude, I have to say the '83 wagon is probably the most fun vehicle. Everyone thinks of a wagon as being bigger, right? And it looks big when you see
Mhm.
it. It is so much smaller than the well anything I've been driving, but it's even smaller than the rallycross cars by quite a
Yeah.
bit. So that makes it feel like a go kart. So I've got 860 horsepower, not as much as the FC1X, but it's a very small, very light vehicle that doesn't look like it should be sliding or anything. It doesn't have any. It has active aero, but that was just a happy coincidence. We basically made arrows so because the front hood of the car catches so much wind, like an '83 wagon does, it just nosedives from hell.
Mhm.
So we had to put something on the rear, like a wing, to hold the rear down so it could fly a little bit more nose up. Ironically, when we hit the brakes, because it's such a soft platform, if you will, uh, the rear was really difficult, especially at the end of this one long straightaway. It comes up over a crest. It's just basically a driveway at Goodwood. But the back end was all over the place. And one of the engineers was like, what if we put the flaps up? So you're going 150 miles an hour. And when I hit the brakes, the flaps come up and it gave me a couple 100 pounds on each tire. All of a sudden, we got
No
a half
way.
second out of the car. I was like, man, this is great.
Yeah, because didn't last year it didn't have the actual rods, right? It was just flaps, or did it always have the rods? And it is active aero when you go on. Is it G-force based or is it throttle based? Where's that at?
So we can hook it up to anything. It's for an '83 wagon. It's got a lot of computer technology to it for sure.
Well, I
Um,
saw the yeah, I saw the digital display. I saw all that. You did a really good walk around video. But again, because this is the second year that vehicle has been at Goodwood,
So
right?
the
So
first
last
year
year,
we had it for the final,
okay,
where but I didn't really get to test it. We just kind of thought about it. We're like, well, actually, one of the engineers was like, I really think this could help keep the rear end down. And I hit the brakes and it just stopped. I was like, wow, that it was
yeah,
like I said, happy coincidence. But I mean, I got an 8 track, still works in this thing. It's like it is so freaking fun, and it's built like a brick, so it doesn't have all the aero. Which
right,
honestly, the Air Slayer, the first Gymkhana that I did in Gymkhana 2020,
yep,
hometown shred, if you will, I think is what it was labeled.
yep,
That car was so big and it was built for hill climbs, but it had so much aero. Scott Speed would have loved it, but it was so
hmm
hard because it went from glued to the ground to backwards. As soon as it got around like 3 to 4 degrees of yaw, all the air would come off. So it made it really really difficult to drive sideways. Where this new car, I feel like we have real small Yokohama, so it doesn't have a lot of rubber to the ground. It doesn't have a lot of aero, so you're always sliding. 860
yeah.
horsepower, you're never going straight. It's phenomenal. It's like dirt.
It's yeah, no, and speaking of Gymkhana and that progression and carrying the torch, rest in peace, our good friend Ken Block, and what Leah and Lucy are doing with EV is really cool. At Pikes Peak, also Extreme E. Leah, or excuse me, Lucy raced the all electric Sierra car up Pikes Peak Hill
Yeah,
Climb.
that's awesome.
Um, Speaking of Gymkhana, again, the family Huckster, that thing was all you needed the wings back then. The way you flew over the helicopter. If you haven't seen that, which one? What is that one called again? It's what number is it? What iteration is it? Just in Florida.
So yeah, Florida was basically Gymkhana 12, but it was
Yep.
my second one that I was able to do. So yeah, it was. I forget actually what they called that. It was like the vacation shred or
Again,
something.
well, yeah, we had so many of our friends in there, including Cletus McFarland and some other homies and stuff. So that was, and I remember, I mean, you were part of Gymkhana 5, which some people say was the best. In my opinion, ripping
I
around San
agree.
Francisco. I
I,
mean, it was just so ahead of its time. I mean, practice obviously was the big one that just broke down. I always say broke down the cubicle walls because I had friends text me and be like, "Hey, you seen this guy rip around in a Subaru?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah," and it just blew up. So again, big love and shout out to the Block family and the Block house. But yeah, you did wheelies in Gymkhana 5. Just your whole career. What's next, dude? I mean, I'm just gonna jump into it. We're only 14 minutes in and we got some time, but what's next for Travis Pastrana outside of being a cheerleader dad?
yeah, actually sitting outside the cheer gym right now. I apologize. There's a lightning storm that's coming through. If you can hear the rain coming down, I can barely hear myself talk. Apologies on that.
It's all good.
But no, at the end of the day, man, we're trying to get Nitro Cross off the ground. We're trying to make electric cool. We're doing the best we can to have the most exciting, high flying series. It's not for everybody. We got the fastest cars, the biggest jumps. It's wild because I'll design a course and everyone will just be like right on the insides. Like we had Mick Schumacher came out to do just a little test in a Can-Am at one of the tracks that we had going in Oklahoma. And he was just driving around the inside as fast as can be. It was awesome. And he's like, yeah, it's kind of one line. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I see the race and everyone's driving around the one line. And I'm like, just go have fun. And he turned the fastest lap that he did all day, just chucking the car all the way to the top in the Can-Am. And he's backing in. He's like, God, that line works. It's so cool. But the motocross racers are able to kind of see this different stuff. And the car racers, they go, there's off cameras on the inside, there's berms on the outside, and they drive around the middle. That's just the flat area.
Hmm.
And as much as like I want to promote this series and I want to eventually be driving and racing the series, I need to be out there to show everyone kind of what can be done and to make sure it's as safe as possible and to always be that driver. But at the end of not the driver, but the driver that kind of goes back and forth between what Dana White wants. He's like, man, it's got to be crazier. It's got to be, let's just send it all the way. Like, we need to find just a bunch of old motocross guys or young motocross guys that are just, they understand jumps and they're going to send it, and some off road dudes. But the best in the world are the rallycross guys, and they're the Europeans. And a lot of them don't
Like
have
Meek.
that.
You look at what Meek's doing, man. Meek out there is, and I saw, we get you in the booth sometimes, and you're analyzing what numbers and levels he's at. And it's really fun to kind of hack hack the car, right? Because you're chopping into the capabilities of it, both where the rubber meets the road, where the Yokohama meets the dirt or the asphalt. And then also now you're trying to dial it in like a computer, because that's what it is. You're really trying to, control alt delete. Let's reset this thing and really find out the perfect configuration. I love that you said Mick Schumacher, because I did hear that and didn't know if you were gonna bring that up. But yeah, our Valentino Rossi's. You talk about,
100%.
everybody from Deegan. Deegan, who is kind of like, I
Deegan's
feel
a
like
phenomenal driver too. He's
he's
really
insane, and
underrated.
so are children that take you for $1,000, Ben Mayer. So
Ben,
I'm just saying, in Can-Ams, I don't know why we got to bring up old stuff, but that's what it is. The diversity of Nitrocross is what I really love. Everything from the Can-Ams to the Class 11s, and then the drivers, obviously the FC1X being the pinnacle. But Nitrocross is one heck of a show. We had a great show at Mid America in Oklahoma. A tornado ripped through there. That was pretty exciting. But Mid America, you have big plans for that thing, right? And also the tracks through this year. I mean, we're going to be, in just a short time, we'll be in Utah once again, the birthplace of rallycross, really, here in the States.
you're going to see more pavement. You're going to see more concrete. You're going to see more diverse tracks. Like right now, Nitrocross is mostly dirt tracks. It's mostly done on kind of off-road truck tracks, the more technical off-road truck tracks. We add some big jumps, um, but I want jumps, not just to be there as a spectacle. Everyone's like, well, you can't hit it wide open. It's not built right. I'm like, no, you can't hit every whoop section wide open or every triple wide open. Like, I want the drivers, and we got to work into that where we slowly get more and more technical, where we have rhythm sections and doubles and triples and even jump on, jump off. As Chris Meek, everyone else is saying the cars are super strong and we're not, like, the jumps are too big. Chris Meek
Mhm.
says the jumps are too small and the cars aren't strong enough. And I want
He's using
more.
expletives as words. He's like, "Let's go, you beep. Come on." Right?
He's calling
He's calling
everyone.
other drivers out.
Yes. Sorry, I don't know
Oh,
if
I
you can
I
hear
saw
that.
I saw the lightning. Oh, it's
Yeah.
good. We're talking about
Um,
electricity, dude. Thor's hammer is just about to drop on you.
but at the end of the day, it's so cool how many different drivers from different sports are excited to try nitrocross to kind of push their limits. And yeah, we don't want this just to be a dirt sport. Like, we've got good funding right now, good new investors that are excited about it. It's going to take some time to build to let people know about these sports, but you get a guy like Kyle Busch that comes in and gets fourth his very first race. That's cool. I want to see more guys from motocross come in. I want to see more guys from off road. Indy cars, like you see Connor Daly and even F1. You'll see different guys and girls shine in different parts. Got girls like Leah Block. Holy cow, her confidence. She's a chip off the old block, if you will. Absolutely phenomenal. She's forging her own path. She's going to be a force to be reckoned with in the Group E, I bet, by the end of next year.
Yeah, and she did, unfortunately, she got penalized there at Mid America, and got pushed to the back of the pack. But as far as, she finished first,
Now,
but
she
but
won
overall,
almost
that was
every race she did. Unfortunately, the results
her
didn't.
times were blazing. And I'm gonna get her and Lucy on the podcast. I want to talk with them about their EV experience from Extreme E and Sierra Car and all those things. Yeah, the tracks are exciting, the people, all of it. Talk about the FC1X development, because that's not just an overnight thing. And concurrently, there are multiple different EV rally cars being prepared and built from WRC stuff, right? I mean, Ford just dropped their new Mach E rally car at Goodwood. Did you have a look at that? And how does the FC1X, and again, development, with the Olsbergs camps and the Ericssons developing this with FC, which is the company in itself, kind of working, together. But this isn't an overnight fluke. This is taking a long time and a lot of level of entrustment as well.
I've never seen, and that's kind of, I got off on a tangent before, but
No, it's okay.
yeah, always. I've never seen so many competitors working together because they believe that nitrocross can be that excitement that they've been missing in racing. It can be that camaraderie. It can be that fun. It can be the nitro circus or the nitro world games compared to the X Games. Like you always need the X Games, you always need the Olympics, but there's a way that we can have fun racing cars again, that we can challenge ourselves, so we can challenge the manufacturers, and we all want to see this succeed. We're all working together. So the drivers want to see the fastest, the most, the strongest, the most insane cars on the face of the earth. We're working with Yokohama. We're working with KMC Wheels. We're working with everybody to really build this ultimate vehicle with the most possible suspension. And they're like, oh, we could drop the ride height. And I'm like, no, because then we can't jump it as far and we can't keep the vehicle intact. So we're changing the rules of racing to make it so that this vehicle is always capable of doing the biggest jumps. It's a WRC car with
Mhm.
4 times the amount of horsepower and the tracks that is going to be the best from every different discipline. And if you're great at snow, awesome. There's a snow round. If you're great at pavement,
Mhm.
shoot, Linden Hill was pretty much almost entirely pavement. I want to have an all pavement track. I want to have an all dirt track. I want to have an all snow track. I want to have a mix of everything. We want to bring concrete into this where there's polished concrete on the inside and maybe pavement on the outside. And maybe we put a water sprinkler system like a skid pad in front of some of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and let's talk to Robbie Madison. I mean, he rode a dirt bike on a wave, so why not, rallycross on the water? I mean, you've raced cigarette boats, right? I mean, shoot. But and again, you're so multifaceted. And again, you talk about X Games, and I remember when you're gonna kind of, unfortunately you hurt yourself, but they promoted the heck out of that X Games. X Games is back in Ventura. I watched it. It was actually really it felt familiar, to be honest. Did you watch any of X Games at all, or were you busy
No,
cheerleading dadding?
I was racing roundy round, but it was great because I got to see Moto Best Trick. It was actually at Applebee's, and I had him turn the volume up. It was amazing, dude. A cliffhanger front flip, and again, I apologize for the lightning storm that I happened to be in.
It's
And
cool.
yes, I am a
It's very
dad.
on point. It's on the nose with the EV thing, so it's very on brand. It's electric, boogie woogie. So yeah,
So
and dude, and Jacko, like Jacko came back, dude. He's like, Jacko and I had some time in the car together when we were in Oklahoma. I picked him up at the hotel and we drove out to the venue and had some time together. So I think he got second, in best trick or
yeah,
something like
I
that.
mean,
So yeah,
I was a little surprised at the judging. It's always surprising, but you know what? I can't do body varials. So like, and I can't do front. I can't do any of the stuff they were doing. But I know that you had Jay Archer was over my house practicing, and he learned that trick 2 days before he went to X Games. Then you got Josh Sheehan, so he did a double backflip no hander. He'd been doing a
yep,
double back knack, but they're doing it on the 75-foot the new Levi ramp. So it's got a little
yep,
bit more pop, but they're getting so much distance out of it. It's so freaking amazing. And then you got electric bike, Josh Sheehan. They're thinking maybe quad flip potential because it accelerates so hard and so fast. It's like a snowmobile. When you hit the gas, it just rips it around even faster than, so you'll be able to stall flips, start them, stall them, kind of like, a handbrake with a rally
yep.
car or with an electric car. We can fly those so much better than we can a combustion because it's like shifting up through all the gears.
Yeah, and that's what you're saying there is basically the EV bikes. What have you experienced those? You're talking about Sheehan's bike and what, the progressions happening there. What's your experience like with them if it's cake or KTM or anything like that? Have you ridden those at all?
No, I think it's interesting though because my kids won't really run anything else. They're 7 and 8 years old,
Yeah.
not as big into motocross as obviously I was at their age, but they like that they can run all the KTM. The 50 it's fairly big, and the senior fairly big, fairly fast, and dude, they can rip that around our backyard, like in their neighbor's backyard, and we always go watch Supercross during the winter. Having a like little cookouts, and all the kids are ripping their electric bikes, and none of the neighbors complain so long
Yeah.
as we keep it watered or whatnot, because they can't hear anything. And I think it's going to help so much for the kids because now they're like, this is so simple. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to worry about power bands. I don't have to. And there's a part of me that will always miss two strokes. Will miss mixing gas and kicking ass.
Okay, boomer. I'm joking. I'm totally joking.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know. It's a soft spot, dude. Obviously, we grew up with it, and that's the conversation that I'm having since I've been starting hosting this and kind of being open about it. Is it's not like ice is going away. And I've had on my other podcast with AAA. It's we talk about. I had an interview with the dude that leads the CARB, like the California Air, right in California, and he talked about there will. He even said he's like cars will be dedicated to race tracks or something like that maybe in the future, and you have them and you pull them out kind of like, I mean, shoot, you see Model A's or Model T's ripping around like Jay Leno if you got a freaking steam powered car, right? That will it be like that? TBD, but we can apply this technology to motorsports, which we know and love. Travis and myself and anybody else, obviously, who's listening to this loves go fast goodies or go crazy goodies. So it's a compliment to the progression of where we're going, right? I mean, is that right? I mean, what I don't know. Elaborate.
if I was going to elaborate, I'd say that it's very difficult to convince my dad's generation that anything that
Mm,
doesn't sound extremely loud and shake your brain from the inside. Like my dad, he's even bummed out. He went to an F1 just this last year, and he was like, "Dude, when I went to my first F1, it shook my soul." He's like, "These sissy cars driving by." I'm like, "Dad, they're like 10 times faster. Like, get over it." Oh, back in Group B, those were back when those guys were crazy. Hey, back in the '70s, two people died out of 20 every year in F1. I'm like, yeah, that these are all negative things, Dad. Like we're progressing. And those airbag landings, I tell you, you guys have gone soft. I'm like, you guys used to jump. You thought the Great Escape was the biggest jump ever. He jumped over a 3-foot fence. J.O. Archer and Josh Sheehan are 115 feet in the air doing a triple backflip.
right.
So yes, there's people what they grew up on. And yeah, when I was just riding two stroke this morning, and man,
Yep.
the smell when it I love it and it's nostalgic. But my kids don't have that same. They hear two strokes and they think scary. They think clutch. They think all of this stuff. When they see an electric bike, they think fun. And I
Hmm.
feel like my mom, I love her. She's always supported everything that I've done, but the noise would always kill her. Like when I was out, she was always yelling, "Stop riding! It's too late to be riding your dirt bikes." Mom, I love you.
Yep.
But you could, and she was someone that was in the family, that was in a very loud family that liked the noise. So I think there's a lot of positives to take from this. The power, the speed, the torque, the excitement, is good. And like you said, Von Gittin is talking about, hey, can we make noise? And we've been on the fence with nitrocross because what I hate is when you go out of sight anywhere. If we take ERX, for example, when the supercars went out of sight, you get the pops and the bangs, and you knew what was going on. It's like when you watch the supercross and you hear someone panic rev, everyone looks in the crowd. They're like, that's where the crash is about to happen. With the electric cars, when it's in front of you, it's exciting. But the second they go out of sight,
Mm,
there's not a lot going on. You don't know what's happening unless you got that big screen TV. So it's forced us to really and you guys announcing, like, you
mhm,
have to really take the crowd step by step what's going on. So it takes better announcing. Honestly, it takes
mhm,
better, or not better announcing, but more educated. Like you guys have to be on point, like you are, and you got to have big screens everywhere, and you got to have more excitement to kind of mix in to bridge this gap from my dad's generation to my kids' generation. But I feel like at the end of the day, we want a sustainable environment. We want to be able to race cars as population grows and all of our tracks are getting shut down. Like there's
mhm.
so much positive, and I want the fastest cars. I want to race
They
whatever's the fastest.
are. That's insane. They are, and yeah, three drag strips closed this week. Atco closed in New Jersey. Crazy. Um, and is that a sign of the times? I think it's just a sign of look, population, a lot of people, and racetracks and racing, and it is what it is. But yeah, overall, FC1X, the car is absolutely incredible. Anybody that comes out and watches, and people like I'll tell people, oh, I announced Formula Drift, I announced Nitro Cross. Like, oh, I think that's the Travis, right? Travis is like, yeah, dude, like come out. Like Glen Helen, Utah, here we are, we're going back to Calgary, like you said. That was such a fun race. Crazy how in Montreal we got both warm weather on both ends of the spectrum. That was a bummer because it got a little slushy, but some really rad racing overall. Like you can't beat the Scandos in the snow, Travis. I don't know what you got to do, but you got to bring
Dude,
it to him, dude.
Fraz, I tell you, Fraz, he
Oh, Fraz was the
outqualified him.
fastest. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, but the Ericsons. I'm talking about the Ericsson bros. They
No,
are
yeah.
they
Dude,
kind of know what they're
all
doing.
yeah. Scandinavians, the darn Vikings, I tell you, they've got it kind of figured out. But that's what's exciting with the Yokohamas. We had like the biggest spikes I think ever used on ice racing, and the first lap around it was slot car racing. It honestly felt
Mhm.
more like pavement racing than anything because you're hooked. And the second you get out of like onto the fluffy snow on the outside, you've got nothing. So it
Mhm.
went from the most grip I've ever had to zero grip, and it took a lot of perfection, which is really not my forte. I don't know if you've noticed, but I kind of like just to wing it and throw it in there real hard and see what happens.
Yeah.
It was good
Yep.
having Scott Speed as a teammate,
I
a
was
few
just
years
gonna
ago.
say that. You even brought him back this last season to get some pointers from again your Subaru teammate on the year a couple years ago.
No, without a doubt. And he's, I think he would drive really well on this, the FC1X, just putting the power down super smooth and being really consistent. Scott was interesting because I had him as a spotter for one round and I had made a couple mistakes and we were quickest in practice and we qualified first. And then I got destroyed on the first race, just made a lot of dumb mistakes. And I came back to the semi and I was like, all right, we're going to win. Scott goes, all right, well, you can't, don't say you're going to win. There's no way you can determine that. Like that has to do with a lot of factors that are outside of your control. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to get the whole shot. He's like, okay, again, something that you can't control. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to suck. He goes, well, if you talk negative, that's what's going to happen. I was like, Scott, what do you want me to do? He said, I want you to do the best that you can to do the greatest start that you are capable of doing and then make good decisions from that point on. And it really, it messed up my mind. I had the worst race of my life. I was so confused. But
That's interesting. But that's a glasses half full kind of opportunity, right? You have that water or that juice or that beer or that Black Rifle coffee in your cup, right? You know that's there, but it's the absence of something that's not there that you don't know, right? Like what else is gonna be? Are you gonna fill it with creamer? Are you gonna fill it with a mixer or whatever? That's Scott's mentality, and that's what's taken him. I mean, back in the day, he was on Red Bull. He did that search. He was the great American hope for Formula One and all that, and then he does different iterations of motorsports. I mean, it's interesting because you and your Connor Martell teammate or your Vermont Sports Car teammate and Connor Martell, you always say it. We're very, very similar. So, as far as mind sharing and race notes, you're saying it's very comparable to each other, as opposed to Scott. You are kind of oil and water, no pun intended.
no, it's very difficult to have a teammate that's so similar to me. It would be like myself and Chris Meek being on a team or Connor Martell. We all were full send. We're quick from lap one, but as drivers like Scott Speed, they analyze everything and they pick up that little bit. And they're better on certain areas, and we're better on certain areas. But at the end of the day, Scott was really good. And the only reason I won this championship back the first year was because of Scott on the team and being able to see this data, and he would get on me so hard. He'd be like, look, why did you overshoot this corner? Like, forget
Mhm.
crashing. Like, why would you miss your mark? And I'm like, well, because you were faster, because, Ericsson's faster, or Robin, or whoever, any of the
Yeah.
guys. And he's like, right. But this is the furthest you can break in this corner, and anything after that's not going to work. I'm like, right. But I've done the best that I can, and I'm not fast enough. He's like, then take a third, take a fourth, take a
Mhm.
sixth. But why are you going? Why are you pushing to get a second or a first when you know this is fast you can go that day? I'm like, because gosh dang it, if you can do it, I can do it. He's like, that's not the, you have to go back in and you have to work on the car and you have to figure out how you can go faster, but you're not going to go faster simply by charging in harder. He goes, you'll just go slower, you wear out the tires. And it was he couldn't understand why I would push over my limits ever. He's like, this is as fast
Mhm.
as you can go. And I couldn't understand why he couldn't figure out that if there's someone going faster, you're going to push.
And what's interesting about Scott too is he gives you this great insight and this feedback about like, look, this is all you and the car are capable of, man and machine in marriage. But when Scott got second, he was first place loser. I mean, you were on No Fear for multiple years. I mean, that's a iconic No Fear T-shirt graphic. You know, second place, first place.
Definitely the first
He
loser.
wore it like a bad suit. You know, he would wear it really terribly well. Hey man, good race. No, it wasn't. You know what I mean? So it's funny, you know, and I love Scott, and he's very as a matter of fact, and that's his analytical mind. I mean, he's never touched alcohol, so I don't know if I could trust him. I'm joking, but that's just an old adage. But no, he is a tremendous racer, and give credit where credit is due. He's very dynamic. I know he's got great feedback. He's very challenging of himself and his teammates. To your point,
Yeah. Well, so a lot of people don't get. So it sounded negative on my side here.
no,
Scott Speed is very methodical. He's very robotic about how he approaches racing, how he approaches life, um, everything, and he's very passionate. But he always tells you what he thinks, and a lot of people can't handle Scott because he rarely gives a compliment. He gives comments. He just tells you how he feels, and he's usually right. He's very good. I mean, honestly, he's right now he's coaching Alex Bowman and maybe the greatest driver in the world, probably the greatest NASCAR driver, and Kyle Larson. And I'd love to get Kyle out honestly to one
hmm
of these races. I think definitely DRR was looking at that before. He's expressed a little bit of interest, but him and guys like Joey Logano, who I think
yeah.
are phenomenal drivers that really show some interest. But um, back to the point here is the best drivers in the world go to Scott Speed for coaching, not because eh, more or less because Scott will always tell them what he feels, and he's always watching, he's always looking. There's never a second that I come in from a race that he isn't on the computer or watching another race or going over data. He 100% of his life is dedicated to being the best Scott Speed he can possibly be and the greatest racer out there. And he is always up. He will learn from anybody. If someone's going faster, he doesn't care if you're only better at this one thing and you're cocky and you're this and that. He'll still pick that out and be like, "You're doing that great." And that's it's pretty neat to be able to learn from anyone. And Scott learns from everybody.
And he's seen it all, like yeah, exactly. So it's cool seeing the diversity of racing and racers and seeing their background. I mean, he's a karting kid, right? And you came from the two-wheel world, and then you applied it to four wheels, right? So he came from the four-wheel karting world with his dad and his brother, and his brother is a wheel man too. Like
Oh
there's a
yeah.
lot of talent. I mean, they live up to their name, literally speed. So, but what are you speaking of? And we're kind of doting on Scott Speed, but what are some other drivers that you've had conversations with to participate in nitrocross? And again, I really want to kind of dote on nitrocross. You and I are both part of it. I've had the pleasure of announcing it for multiple years, and I love the product, love the brand, love Dana White's fervor, and met a lot of the team at Oklahoma, and want to see where it's going. But names, people, places, anything else you kind of want to promote?
So, well, I can't really talk about a lot of, but there's a lot of NASCAR drivers, a lot of IndyCar drivers, a lot of even everyone from Cletus McFarland, to Leah Block, and a lot of the female drivers are getting a great opportunity in the Can-Ams and the lights. They've done exceptionally well. I think Extreme E has brought a lot of light and a lot of help to kind of encourage women racers to not just be the best female, but to go head to head against the guys. There's no reason that a female can't be the best driver in the world. I've stuck to that. You know, it's not a physical sport. It's a technical sport. Obviously there's physical attributes to it. You do take a beating if you crash. There are some impacts and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think Extreme E has really brought up the level of the female racers, and I'm so excited to see so many of the girls that are in Nitrocross also competing in that and getting
Mhm.
guys like Matthias Ekstrom, who are really helping. Like with Lia Sans, bringing her up to try to get the females to the same level that the guys are. And I feel like in the next year or two, we're going to see not just one, but a handful of female drivers kicking some ass in
Mhm.
Nitrocross. And I'm really looking forward to seeing, as this is kind of the most macho, if you will, of all the sports. And you got so many badass dudes that are really scared, that are, this isn't a sport for everyone. Like I said, we need more WRC guys like Chris Meek coming in that aren't afraid to absolutely send it, like Rally Finland. We need more off road guys coming in We've had obviously Brian Deegan did extremely well. Um, you've had BJ Baldwin came in, had a lot of fun in the Can-Am class. Um, you know, Heck, there's so many of the top drivers that we're really talking about getting over here. And even, I'd love to see Kimi Räikkönen come over.
Yep.
We have Sebastian Vettel. He
Yeah, you've
was
been talking a lot
very
of smack to
interested.
Vettel since Race of Champions, right? You're like, "What's up, bro? What's going on? When are you coming over?" Because he's talking, here's Jensen who just raced the street race, or no, he did 24-hour Le Mans in that NASCAR, that 20. So everybody's crossing over, which I think is great. And you're
But
you're
so
you're a consummate student.
Noah Gregson came over as my spotter. We actually
That's right.
won our first round with him as my spotter, and he's like, "I'm in, I'm in." So he's been talking to all the guys at Black Rifle, and I think we'll possibly
Cool.
Phoenix get Noah into the car. So it's gonna be really cool to see there. Um, you know, Anyway, the list goes on and on. It's hard to
No, it's
really
cool.
put out, but yeah,
Hopefully,
Kimi
Noah's
Räikkönen.
got his really cool bowl cut. I saw his birthday the other day, and he had his really sweet Wendy's race suit on with that crazy Oliver Tree looking bowl cut. So I'm here for it. But we are going to Utah in a little bit. You can find Nitrocross on Rumble, right, exclusively, and that's kind of where we're at, and it's
Live
really
and
cool.
free. It is
That's right.
free globally, which is we're not behind a paywall anymore. I'm like, we gotta show people how awesome the sport is. So thank you everyone for watching, and that's checking out the sport for sure.
Yeah, check it out on Rumble. The slap fights are there. You got Street League skateboarding. You got Nitro. Like Rumble is this new platform that we are heavily promoting. Dana White and his whole team are behind. So Hezbollah is coming to race for us, huh? We're gonna get a little tiny car that Hezbollah could drive, right?
I that's the rumor. I'm out of that. I just think that's gonna be hilarious. He was a cool dude. Cool dude.
Yeah, I know, there was a great big powwow getting all the racers together, including you, Connor, Chris, Fraz, so many great personalities, and that's what I love about it. With the price of admission, if you come in the building of Nitro Cross, you get complimentary access into the pits. You can high five and handshake Travis and amongst the whole field and cast of characters of people with, again, class 11, Blake Wilkie in Oklahoma. Super excited to get him back out there. I think that
He
made
launched
an
down that hill
amazing.
so big.
So sick. Class 11, if you don't know, they're Baja Bugs. Take a look at them. I mean, iconic car in the open desert, but now we're bringing them to Nitro Cross. So that's what's beautiful is you have this great juxtaposition of these tiny little, four banger little Volkswagen Bugs with this long travel that can handle it. And then you got the future. The future is now Nitro Cross. I mean, did I encapsulate all those things well, Travis? I mean, again, you're the unofficial mayor.
No, it's fun. And at the end of the day, like my biggest goal for this is to set up a series that the drivers enjoy driving. I feel like with Nitro Circus, we learned that the entertainment wasn't necessarily how hard the trick was, but how well you could relate that to the audience, the everyday, person that wants to be a part of this. And with Nitrocross, we have these huge jumps. I want these Talladega banked rights and lefts. I want passing where we don't have to put it in the hands of the stewards to be like, oh, that was too aggressive or that wasn't. I want to be where you can go high, low, and you can, the drivers are equally as scared as they are excited, and they're having fun driving the course. I think when Ken Block drove Utah for the first time, he said, "This is the most fun I've ever had. Like, this is the single greatest driving course I've ever driven." And what he meant was, it's so fun with one person, but going side by side over these big jumps, he's like, it takes a whole different mindset. And he was so scared, which is rare for Ken. And then he went over the huge jump every lap because it's a quarter second faster than not hitting the jump with a flat tire completely sideways. He's like, well, it's a quarter second faster. What do you want me to do? And I just think the drivers, they have this mindset, but then when they get out there, everyone goes for the win. And it's a fine balance of safety and excitement, of entertainment, and to make sure that it's the most legit racing on the planet.
I mean, you're building real life Hot Wheels tracks, and I'm just thinking of Ken. I know he was, and to your point, I know he always loved the New Zealand rally. They had those big, beautiful bank turns. The scenery is awesome, but overall, I think it was the landscape and the undulation of those turns that I really liked. So now here you can take the turns of New Zealand, the Talladega turns, these, and I know Oklahoma, what it was this year to next year is going to be very different. That it's such a really cool, like I said, you're using real life tractors like Tonka trucks and Hot Wheels. Now you've put a pump on it, pumped it up. That's what Mid America is. Next year, it's gonna. I know Vaughn was out there. He was racing his class, what is it? Well, Ultra 4. He's racing his Ultra 4. Um, he's working with you on paving some areas that maybe drifting, but also with rallycross, right?
Yep. So we're going to concrete quite a few of the corners. Everyone's like, oh, well, it's got to be dirt. I said, okay, dirt, especially with such a big track as Mid America. I'm like, what would be cool is if you could have polished concrete on the inside, textured concrete in the middle, and pavement on the outside. So you take the slowest lines and you make it so you can just carry more speed because there's more grip. So the whole track becomes basically this ring where you can practice. And then if you get the Can-Ams and the side-by-sides and the Pro 2s and Pro 4s that flip over easier, you just block off kind of that pavement area, and all of a sudden you can still race this. But now the teams don't have to pay $20,000 to re-prep the track before they go test. The track's just always available. And that
Wow.
track at Mid America, like we've got access to, Jason Robinette and the whole crew. They're like, yeah, bring the teams down. They can stay in the cabins. They can, we've got hookups as they bring their motorhomes. And, that's where Sebastian Vettel was like, hey, I'm traveling with my family this year. He goes, I'm already kind of like, I want to get back into to racing soon. He goes, I just need to take a little downtime. And like, that's the first place I think we get Sebastian was just, vacationing with his family over there, where my daughters, they're 7 and 8 years old, and they just did their very first side-by-side race, their very first race of any motorsports.
Oh,
And they
that's
didn't
right.
even know they were going to do it. They just showed up at Mid America. And while I'm out practicing, one of their friends was out there. He was like, oh, I'm going to race. And they borrowed two side-by-sides, and they went out and had the time of their life. And I think bringing the families in and building this from the ground up is really where we need to go with motorsport,
Mhm.
to put some fun back in. And not to get off on another tangent, but my dad, I was in NASCAR, so frustrated, just banging my head against the wall. We qualify, fifth, eighth, and we'd finish 10th, 12th. And I'm like, I just can't do it. And I was so disappointed. And my dad goes, I was like, oh, Dad, I crashed again. He goes, you were backwards at 180 miles an hour, four wide, and got 10th at Daytona, in the secondary series.
Yeah.
He's like, I would give my left nut to go backwards at 180 through the grass. He goes, that looks so fun. And the excitement there has been lost a little bit in racing. And our goal of Nitrocross is to bring that back.
Perfect segue. Great way to end. So we're talking about Travis's nuts or his dad's nuts. He
Sorry,
would give it. He would surrender his nuts. I think
he just
overall,
said one.
Travis,
I
you're
don't, I don't know.
just one, not all of them. Just yeah, we got to keep one. Um, Travis, you're such a great compliment. You're such a just a kind. You're a proud husband, a father, a friend, a loyalist, a traditionalist, but progressive. Like all these things, man. You are it, man. So thanks for your time, man. I know a lot of people are gonna tap on your shoulder and ask them about the FC1X. I'm sure you get it already about what are you doing? What is this? Educate me. And I think you dropped a lot of knowledge there on your relationship with EV, most recently with Nitrocross, but just overall, again, I think you're willing and accepting of this progression. So thank you, man.
Dude, hey, thank you for all you do. Honestly, I sorry not to go back and forth here, but it's so cool to have such passionate people involved all around me in every aspect. And thanks for having me on here. And always happy to talk.
Yeah, man. All right. So check out Nitrocross on all the social media platforms. And of course, you can tune in Rumble, free around the world. Rumble, watch Nitrocross the entirety of the 23-24 season. Myself and Andrew Cole there calling the action. So if you love my voice or you hate it, just put it on mute, regardless. Thank you so much. Travis Pastrana, Mr. 199. I think I said your name once, but you need no introduction. So thanks, brother. I'll let you get back to being a cheerleading dad. Thanks for listening to the Electrify podcast, brought to you by the creators of Electrify Expo. Be sure to catch full video episodes on YouTube at Electrify TV and follow along on social media for daily clips and more.